If I had known that my 30th birthday would be the day my family betrayed me, I would have never shown up. But there I was, cake on the table, balloons in the air, completely clueless. You ever have one of those birthdays where you think, this year's gonna be different? That was me turning 30. I wasn't expecting fireworks or some huge bash, just a quiet night at my parents' place, a little backyard barbecue, a few beers, some laughs. Simple. Comfortable. Exactly what I needed after a rough year. I showed up early to help Dad set up the grill. Mom was inside, tossing together one of her famous potato salads, and my little sister Emily was blowing up balloons like we were throwing a party for a 6-year-old. It felt nice. Familiar. Home. Our house, well, their house I guess wasn't anything fancy. A 2-story place on a quiet street where everybody still waved hello. I basically grew up on that front porch. Scraped knees on the driveway, first kisses behind the garage, late-night talks with Emily leaning against the old oak tree. Every memory I had worth keeping seemed tied to those walls. The thing is, after college, when money got tight for my folks, I stepped in. Helped cover mortgage payments, property taxes, whatever popped up. It wasn't some huge sacrifice, it was family. You don't keep score with family, right? At least, that's what I believed. So when I walked into the living room and saw the table set with a little cake, a few cards, and a couple of wrapped presents, I felt this warm, stupid wave of gratitude. They remembered. They cared. Maybe 30 wasn't gonna be so bad after all. We all sat down together, me, Mom, Dad, Emily, plates loaded up, music low in the background, sunset painting the sky through the back windows. Halfway through my second burger, Dad cleared his throat. I smiled, thinking he was about to make one of his corny "you're getting old" jokes. But instead, he looked at Mom. She nodded. Emily kept her eyes on her plate. Dad said, real slow, like he was walking across thin ice, "Son, there's something we need to tell you." I put my burger down, suddenly aware that everyone was way too serious for a birthday dinner. My stomach tightened. Mom chimed in, all fake bright, it's a good thing. A fresh start. Emily wouldn't even look at me. Dad leaned forward, folding his hands on the table like he was about to negotiate world peace. We sold the house. I blinked. Laughed even. Thought it was a joke. Sold the house? What are you talking about? Mom smiled, that tight, brittle smile she always used when she was hiding something. We finalized everything last week. We're moving out next month. The room spun a little. I felt my heart hammer against my ribs. You sold the house? My voice cracked on the last word. Dad nodded. Market's high. Good time to cash out. But, I stammered, trying to piece it together. I helped pay for this place. I've been helping for years. How could you sell it without even telling me? Mom reached for my hand, but I pulled away. We didn't want to burden you with the details, she said softly. We thought it was best to just make the decision. Emily finally spoke up, barely a whisper. I told them you should know. But they didn't listen. I sat there, numb, staring at the house I thought was part mine, at the family I thought I was helping, at the birthday dinner that now felt like a funeral. The candles on the cake flickered in the breeze from the open window. Happy birthday to me. I don't even remember cutting the cake. Everything after their announcement turned into a weird, slow-motion blur. I heard their voices, distant, muffled, trying to explain, to justify. But none of it made sense. None of it could make sense. I just kept thinking, how could they do this? When I finally snapped out of it, I realized I was standing outside on the porch, arms crossed, staring at the front yard like it might somehow give me answers. I must have walked out in the middle of their conversation. I didn't even care. A few minutes later, Emily came out. She didn't say anything at first. Just leaned on the railing next to me, staring at the streetlights flickering on one by one. I'm sorry, she mumbled. I nodded stiffly. I knew it wasn't her fault. If anything, it sounded like she fought for me. But still, it hurt that she didn't push harder. That nobody fought harder. They already signed everything, she added after a long pause. It's done. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Where are you even going? She shrugged. They're moving to a condo in Florida. Retirement plan, I guess. Florida. Of course. Sunshine, golf courses, and gated communities. Perfect for starting over, perfect for forgetting the life they were leaving behind. Perfect for leaving me behind. I stayed out there until most of the neighbors' porch lights flicked off and the streets went quiet. I didn't want to go back inside. Didn't want to sit at that table again and pretend everything was normal. When I finally did walk back in, Mom was wiping down the counters like nothing had happened. Dad was in his recliner, flipping through channels. The remains of the birthday dinner were already packed away, the house eerily spotless, like they were already halfway gone. Mom smiled too brightly. We saved you a piece of cake. I stared at her, feeling this cold, ugly anger rise up inside me. No thanks, I said. My voice sounded strange in my own ears, flat, dead. I grabbed my keys from the hook by the door. Dad called after me, "Don't be dramatic, son. It's just a house. Just a house." The words hit me like a slap. Maybe to them it was just walls and floors and a mortgage. But to me, it was everything. It was every late night I spent helping Mom with the bills. Every extra shift I picked up to cover Dad's property taxes. Every memory stitched into the foundation. I didn't say anything. I just walked out. Drove aimlessly for a while, windows down, cool night air stinging my face. Ended up parked by the lake on the edge of town, watching the dark water ripple under the moonlight. I thought about the first time Dad taught me to fish here. How proud he looked when I caught a tiny bluegill. How he ruffled my hair and said, "See, home's not just a place, it's the people you love." Funny how fast people can change when money's on the table. I sat there until the sky started to lighten with the first hints of dawn. When I finally started the car to head home, or whatever was left of it, I realized something deep in my gut. Maybe the house was just the beginning of what I was about to lose. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept replaying it, their faces, their words, the way they all just decided without me. Like I was a stranger renting a room, not their son. Like all the years of helping, of sacrificing, meant nothing. By the time morning rolled around, I wasn't angry anymore. I was cold. Numb. I decided I needed answers. Real ones. Not the sugar-coated excuses they tossed out at dinner. I pulled into the driveway around 9 a.m., the sight of the house hitting me like a punch to the gut all over again. The for sale sign that wasn't there yesterday now stood crooked on the front lawn, a red "sold" sticker slapped across it. I barely knocked before pushing the door open. Mom was sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of papers, the sale documents, I guessed. Dad was fiddling with a box in the living room, already packing up like it was no big deal. Emily was nowhere to be seen. They both looked up when I came in, like they weren't sure if they should smile or brace for a fight. I didn't give them a chance to say anything. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, voice low and shaking. Mom sighed like I was the one making things difficult. "Honey, we didn't want you to feel obligated." Obligated? I cut her off, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. I was obligated. I chose to be. Every time you needed help, I was there. Dad finally spoke, setting the box down with a thud. "We never asked you to." That hit harder than I expected. "No," I said slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. "You didn't ask. You just let me. Because it was easier." Neither of them argued. I pressed my hands to my face, trying to breathe. "You sold the house without even a conversation. Without a warning. And you kept taking my money knowing you already planned to leave." Mom's voice cracked a little. "We didn't know at first. The offer came up out of nowhere. A friend of a friend, they offered cash, no inspections. It all happened so fast." Dad crossed his arms. "It's not personal. We're getting older. We need something manageable." I laughed short, humorless. "Not personal? I grew up here. I bled for this house. I paid for this house. And you couldn't even give me the courtesy of telling me." Mom wiped at her eyes. "We didn't think you'd understand." I took a shaky breath. "Try me." Silence. For a long, awful minute, neither of them spoke. Just the ticking of the old wall clock filling the space where a family used to be. Finally, Dad muttered, "We needed the money. More than we needed the house. More than we needed to explain it to you." There it was. Plain. Ugly. I felt something inside me snap, not rage, not sadness, just a deep, hollow emptiness. I nodded slowly. "Okay," I said, backing toward the door. "I get it." Mom stood up, panicking. "Please don't leave like this." But I was already halfway out. Dad's voice followed me, sharp and defensive. "Don't act like a victim, son. It's just life." I didn't even turn around. Because it wasn't just life. It was betrayal, plain and simple. And for the first time, I realized something terrifying. Maybe blood isn't thicker than betrayal after all. The next few days were a blur. I didn't answer their calls. I didn't respond to Emily's texts. I just shut down. I went to work. I came home. I ate when I remembered. I didn't tell my friends. I didn't tell anyone. How do you even explain something like that? Hey, guess what? My parents sold the house I helped pay for and didn't even bother to tell me. Happy birthday to me. At night, I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling of my tiny apartment, remembering all the times I told myself that family meant everything. That loyalty meant something. That sacrifices came back around. It was a joke. A cruel one. On the third night, Emily showed up at my door. I almost didn't answer. But part of me, the part that still remembered her sneaking into my room during thunderstorms when we were kids, couldn't leave her standing out there. She looked wrecked. Puffy eyes, dark circles, like she hadn't slept either. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. I nodded, stepping aside. She sat down on the edge of my couch, twisting her hands in her lap. For a minute, neither of us spoke. Then she blurted out, "I tried to stop them. I swear I tried." I sat across from her, arms crossed, feeling the wall between us like something solid. "I know," I said. And I meant it. Deep down, I knew she wasn't the enemy here. Tears welled up in her eyes. "They kept saying it wasn't about you. That it was just the smart move. That you'd understand eventually." I shook my head slowly. "They're right about one thing. I do understand." She sniffed. "I don't want us to lose each other over this." I looked at her, really looked, and saw the same scared kid I used to protect from bullies on the playground. The same little sister who once made me a lopsided friendship bracelet out of yarn because real friends don't leave. "I don't either," I said, voice rough. We sat there in silence for a long time, the city noise humming faintly through the windows. Finally, she said, "They're having a going-away party next weekend. Last chance to say goodbye to the house." I felt something twist in my chest. "Goodbye?" The thought made me sick. "I don't know if I can," I admitted. Emily nodded like she understood. "I'll be there. If you change your mind." She stood up, hesitated like she wanted to hug me but didn't know if she was allowed, then just left without another word. After she was gone, I sat alone in the dark, staring at the door she closed behind her. Part of me wanted to let it all go. To pretend it didn't matter. To go to their party, smile, say all the right things, and move on. But another part of me, a deeper, angrier part, knew it wasn't that simple. Because the truth was, this wasn't just about a house. It was about trust. And once trust is broken, it doesn't come back with cake and goodbye speeches. The next weekend came faster than I thought it would. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection, trying to decide if I could face them. If I wanted to. I almost stayed home. Almost. But something in me, maybe the part that needed closure, or maybe just the part that hated unfinished business, grabbed my keys and walked out the door. When I pulled up to the house, the driveway was packed. People I hadn't seen in years were milling around the front yard, holding solo cups, laughing like this was some kind of festival, not a funeral. I stayed in the car for a long moment, heart pounding. Then I got out. One last time. Walking up to the house felt like stepping into someone else's dream. Everything was too bright, too loud, too fake. Neighbors clapped me on the back, smiling wide. "Your parents are making the smart move," they said. "Florida, huh? Living the dream." I forced a tight smile and nodded, pushing through the crowd. Inside, the house looked wrong. Stripped down. Empty walls where family photos used to hang. Bare shelves. Half-packed boxes stacked along the hallways. The life we built here was already dismantled, piece by piece, like it had never mattered at all. I found Emily in the kitchen helping Mom set out appetizers. She caught my eye and gave me a small, almost apologetic smile. I nodded back. Dad was near the fireplace, beer in hand, holding court with a group of old family friends, telling some story I couldn't even focus on. Mom spotted me and beamed like nothing had happened, waving me over. I stayed rooted where I was. I didn't want fake conversations. I didn't want small talk about Florida or retirement plans. I wanted my family back, the one I thought I had. Instead, I got a celebration for a betrayal dressed up as a new beginning. I moved through the house slowly, room by room, taking it in. The scratch on the wall from when Emily crashed her bike inside the hallway. The stain in the carpet from the time I dropped a whole bowl of spaghetti at a birthday party. The tiny notches on the doorframe marking our heights year after year. I touched them all like they might somehow anchor me. But they didn't. Because they weren't just memories. They were ghosts now. When I made it to the backyard, it was empty. Just the old oak tree swaying gently in the breeze. I leaned against it, closing my eyes. I don't know how long I stood there before I heard footsteps behind me. It was Dad. He didn't say anything for a while. Just stood there, staring out over the fence line. Finally, he said, "You think we're villains in this story." I stayed quiet. He sighed. "We did what we thought was best for us. Maybe not for you. And I'm sorry you got hurt in the process." I looked at him then, really looked, and saw the weight in his face. He wasn't gloating. He wasn't proud. He was just tired. Tired and scared of getting old, of running out of time. Maybe in some twisted way this was the best they could do. Maybe they weren't villains. Maybe they were just human. It didn't make it hurt any less. "I don't hate you," I said finally, voice low. "But I can't pretend this didn't change things. He nodded slowly, like he already knew that. We stood there a while longer, saying nothing. Eventually, I walked back through the house one last time, said a few quick goodbyes, hugged Emily tight, ignored the ache in my chest when Mom started crying, and then I left. No grand speeches, no dramatic scenes, just left. Driving away, I watched the house grow smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror until it disappeared completely. And maybe that's the real truth they never taught me. Sometimes, family isn't about blood or memories or good intentions. Sometimes, family is about trust. And once it's broken, all you can do is walk away. I still wonder, though, was I wrong to cut them off? Should I have stayed, forgiven, tried harder? Or were some goodbyes always meant to happen? What would you have done?